I want to start with the ending. Because the ending is the only part that still doesn't feel real. The ending is this. I was sitting in a conference room on the 14th floor of a building that used to have my best friend's name on the lease. And I was watching him sign documents that transferred what remained of his company to a holding group for less than a tenth of what it was worth. 2 years earlier. He didn't know I was in the building. He didn't know I had been in that building every month for 2 years. He didn't know a lot of things. That was the point. My name is not important. On Reddit people call me _quiet_exit. What's important is what Marcus did. And what I did after. And why every single step took exactly as long as it needed to. This is not a story about anger. Angry people make mistakes. Angry people act too fast. Angry people give the other person something to point to. This is a story about patience. About what you can build when you stop screaming and start writing things down. Marcus and I met in our first year of university. Business school. We were placed in the same project group by a professor who, I suspect, enjoyed watching completely different personalities collide in small rooms. Marcus was loud, confident, the kind of person who walked into a room and immediately found the most important person in it and started talking to them. I was the other kind. I found the quietest corner. I read the room first. I spoke when I had something worth saying. Somehow we became best friends anyway. For 11 years. He was the best man at my engagement party. I was the one he called at 2 in the morning when his father had a heart attack and he needed someone to drive to the hospital. I trusted him completely. I want you to understand that. Not partially. Not mostly. Completely. Which is why what he did took me so long to see. And why, when I finally saw it, I made sure I saw all of it before I moved a single inch. We started the company together at 27. It was my idea. A consulting firm specializing in supply chain logistics for mid-size manufacturers. Niche. Unsexy. Extremely profitable. If you knew what you were doing. I knew what I was doing. I had spent 5 years in the industry. Before we started, I had the contacts, the methodology, the track record. Marcus had the energy, the sales ability, the gift of walking into a room and making people feel like they needed exactly what we were offering. We were a good team. For 3 years we were a very good team. We structured the company 50-50. I handled operations, client delivery, finance. Marcus handled business development and sales. We had a shareholders agreement. We had a lawyers. We had, I believed, a friendship. That made all the legal documents feel like formalities. That last belief was the expensive one. It started with the clients. Marcus handled the client relationships on the sales side. That meant he was the face. He was the one they called first. He was the one they had dinner with. I was the one who did the actual work. Which meant, over time, the clients knew Marcus's name better than they knew mine. I accepted this. It was the deal. What I didn't know was that for approximately 18 months, Marcus had been having separate conversations with our top 6 clients. Conversations about a new company. His company. A company that would do exactly what we did, but without me in it. He had been laying the groundwork very carefully, slowly building the narrative that he was the real engine of the business. That the operational side, my side, could be handled by anyone. That what they were really paying for was him. He wasn't entirely wrong about the last part. He was wrong about everything else. The moment I found out was a Thursday afternoon. In March. I was reviewing our CRM system. And I noticed that 6 of our top clients had their contact category changed to transitioning. I didn't change that. Marcus had admin access. I didn't say anything. I went home. I made dinner. I slept. And the next morning I started writing things down. He found out on a Thursday. He didn't confront Marcus on Thursday. He didn't confront him on Friday. Or the week after. Some of you are already frustrated by that. Good. Because Marcus was counting on frustration. He was counting on a blow-up. He was counting on being handed an excuse. _quiet_exit gave him nothing to hold on to. For a very long time. I need to tell you about the second thing. Because the company was not the worst part. Her name was Claire. We had been engaged for 14 months. We were supposed to get married the following September. I found the messages 6 days after I found the CRM anomaly. I wasn't looking for them. I was using Claire's laptop to print a document. Because my printer was out of ink. A browser tab was open. I read enough to understand. I closed the tab. I printed the document. I said nothing. I went for a very long walk. 2 hours. Alone. In the rain. And somewhere on that walk, I made a decision. That changed how the next 4 years would go. I decided not to react. Not yet. Not until I understood the full picture. Not until I had documented everything. Not until I knew exactly what I was dealing with. And exactly what I was going to do about it. I went home. I was warm to Claire. I was normal at work. I gave Marcus nothing. And I hired a lawyer the next morning. Over the next 3 months, I documented everything. Every client communication Marcus had redirected. Every meeting he had taken without logging. Every email he had sent from his personal account to people on our client list. Every piece of company intellectual property he had copied to an external drive. I found this through our IT monitoring system, which Marcus had forgotten we had, because I had set it up quietly 2 years earlier. For exactly the kind of audit no one ever thinks they'll need. I also documented the personal situation. I won't go into detail about how. But when you are methodical and patient, and you are dealing with people who believe they have already won, people get careless. By month 3 I had a folder that my lawyer described as the most thorough piece of pre-litigation preparation I have seen in 20 years of practice. I took no pleasure in this. I want to be clear about that. I was not enjoying any of it. I was functioning. I was building. I was doing the thing I have always done. When I need to survive something, I was working. Marcus launched his new company in June. He told me about it the same week. He told me he was leaving our partnership. He sat in the chair across from my desk. The same chair he had sat in for 3 years of Monday morning meetings. And he explained that he felt the partnership had run its course. That he had a vision that required a different kind of structure. That he hoped we could remain friends. He looked confident. He looked like a man who had thought very carefully about this conversation. And was sure he controlled it. I let him finish. Then I said, I know about the clients, Marcus. I know about the IP transfers. I know about the external drive. I know about Claire. A pause that lasted approximately 4 seconds. I counted. Then he said, I don't know what you. I slid a folder across the desk. 3 months of documentation. Indexed. Dated. Sourced. I said, my lawyer has copies of all of this. I said, we are going to have a very different conversation than the one you prepared for. I said, take the folder home. Read it tonight. Come back tomorrow with your lawyer. He took the folder. He left. He didn't say another word. I sat in the empty office for a long time after. Then I ordered a very good dinner. And ate it alone at my desk. And it was the best meal I had eaten in 3 months. 4 seconds. That pause lasted 4 seconds. Marcus walked into that office, believing he was ending something. He walked out holding evidence that he had committed multiple breaches of their shareholder agreement, misappropriation of company assets, and tortious interference with business relationships. He didn't know the folder existed. He didn't know the IT monitoring existed. He didn't know that the man he had spent 18 months deceiving had spent 3 months doing something Marcus had never once considered: writing everything down. The legal process took 7 months. Marcus's lawyers were good. They tried several angles. They argued the IP transfers were inadvertent. They argued the client conversations were within his role as business development director. They made a counterclaim about a bonus he said I had withheld. That last one almost made me laugh. I had the payroll records going back for years. In the end, the settlement gave me full ownership of the company, full ownership of all intellectual property, a significant financial payment covering the value of the clients he had attempted to take, a non-compete clause covering our entire industry for 3 years, and a non-disparagement agreement that prevented him from using my name or the company's name in any marketing or communications. He got to keep the name of his new company. He just couldn't have any of the clients, or any of the methods, or any of the reputation he had been planning to build it on. His new company launched 6 weeks later, without our 6 top clients, without our IP, without the methodology he had watched me build for years, without me. It turned out I was harder to replace than he had calculated. Claire and I ended the engagement the week after the legal process concluded. I had known for months. I had waited until the legal situation was fully resolved, because mixing the two things would have complicated everything, and given Marcus ammunition he didn't deserve to have. The conversation with Claire was short. I told her I knew. I told her exactly how long I had known. I told her I wasn't angry. I was done. She cried. She apologized. She said things that I believed were true, but that didn't change anything. I said. I hope you're happy. I meant it. Unhappiness is not a thing I want for anyone. I moved out of our shared apartment. I rented a small place near the office. I bought one piece of furniture at a time, until it felt like a home. It took about 4 months. The office took less time. I already knew exactly what I was building there. What happened over the next 4 years is the part of the story that people on Reddit always want to skip to. So here it is. But I want you to understand that every part of it was ordinary. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just work. Just decisions. Just time. I rebuilt the client base. Not just the 6 who had been targeted. All of them. And new ones. I hired a small team. Then a larger one. I brought in a business development director, who, unlike Marcus, understood that their job was to support the work, not to become the work. The company grew. In year 2 we moved to larger offices. In year 3 we were acquired by a regional firm, at a valuation that would have been unimaginable when Marcus and I started with 2 desks and a whiteboard. I became a minority shareholder in the acquiring firm. I stayed on as director of operations. I had equity. I had stability. I had something I had not had in the 3 years before Marcus left. I had a team I trusted. And Marcus? Marcus's company survived for 2 years. It was never profitable. Without the methodology and without the clients. It was, as one of his former salespeople told me later at a conference, a car with no engine. He tried to pivot twice. The second pivot failed publicly enough that it was noted in a trade publication. By year 3 he was consulting independently. By year 4 the non-compete had expired. And he attempted to re-enter our market. He found that the market had moved on. And that the reputation he had been planning to trade on had been occupied by me. This is the part where people expect something dramatic. A confrontation. A public humiliation. Something cinematic. There was none of that. Because here is the thing about real revenge. The kind that actually works. It doesn't look like revenge. It looks like success. Every meeting he lost because his reputation was gone. That was the revenge. Every client who chose the company Marcus had tried to take. That was the revenge. Every trade publication that mentioned the company, and not his name. That was the revenge. He built nothing. He took nothing. And the person he tried to erase was still there. Still working. Still building. Quietly. Which brings me back to the conference room. On the 14th floor, the acquiring firm that bought my company had, as part of its expansion strategy, been quietly purchasing distressed consulting businesses in our region. One of those businesses was what remained of Marcus's company. I was not involved in the negotiation. I had declared a conflict of interest and recused myself. Everything was handled by other people. But I was in the building that day for a completely unrelated board meeting, and I happened to walk past the glass-walled conference room where Marcus was sitting with his lawyers and our firm's acquisition team. I saw him before he saw me. He looked tired, smaller than I remember, not in a satisfying way, just in the way that people look when things have been hard for a long time. He looked up, our eyes met. For approximately 2 seconds, I nodded, not warmly, not coldly, just acknowledged, the way you acknowledge someone who used to mean something, and now is just a person in a room. Then I kept walking. I had a board meeting to get to. People asked me on Reddit, was it worth it? Do you feel better? Do you feel like you won? Honest answer. I don't think about winning. I don't think about Marcus very much at all. But what I think about is the 3 months I spent documenting, the 7 months of legal process, the first year of rebuilding, when I wasn't sure any of it would work. I think about the team I have now. 15 people, all of whom know exactly why they're here. All of whom know that the work is the thing, not the credit, not the visibility, the work. I think about what Marcus taught me, not intentionally, but you learn things from the people who failed you that you cannot learn any other way. He taught me that trust without verification is not trust, it's hope, and hope is not a business strategy. He taught me that the most dangerous person in any room is not the loud one, it's the quiet one, who has been watching and writing things down. He taught me that patience is not passive. Patience is the 2,400 people agreed. Marcus never commented. But someone replied. He knows. They always know. Good night.